Hey, Lloyd. Kind of miss Avis sitting here with us.
Yeah, where is Avis? What happened to Avis?
Avis jumped on a big jet plane and went back to the other side of the world.
Yeah, for those that that don't know, Avis married a Filipino girl. Avis been married quite a while now.
About 20 years.
About 20 years. Now, we never thought it would work out, but it was kind of funny when it went over there. Somebody said, "Well, Avis, if it doesn't work out," and Avis says, "No, wait a minute, you don't understand. It's going to work out. If this one doesn't work out, I'm going to find another one."
Yeah.
I'm coming back married.
Yeah, Ronnie took him to the airport, and Ronnie said, "What if it don't work out?" And Avis says, "It don't matter. I'm going to marry somebody when I go."
I'm going to marry somebody. But he married her.
Yeah, he did.
And everything's worked out. It's been 20 years now, and they adopted a child over there. And they've had some trouble with the immigration laws, getting
adoption and immigration. Yeah.
So anyway, he's gone back and continuing to work on that. We don't know when he'll be back again, but we're going to bring Ronnie in.
Yeah, I talked to Ronnie, and he's agreed to come in as our guest host on a few episodes. And he's sick today, but he'll be back with us.
Yeah.
Ronnie will join us.
Yeah. Well, Ronnie's experienced. You know, we had the radio program, and Ronnie used to come in with us on the radio program.
Oh, okay.
Several years ago.
Well, as you alluded to in the last recording we did, Avis even said Ronnie has better jokes than he does.
Well, I don't know about that, but...
well, I don't either, but...
I don't know if they're better. Ronnie is more free with his jokes.
Ronnie is kind of like Press Tullis was a little bit. He's quiet, but he's quick thinking. You know, he can come up with something on the spot, and you can't really tell if he's serious or joking.
Ronnie has what I call a dry humor.
Yeah.
You could put the old joke where you put a bucket of water over the door and somebody walks through and it falls on their head.
Yeah.
Ronnie's the kind of guy that if you played that joke on him, he'll walk around with the bucket on his head pretending like it never happened. Yeah, he won't give you the satisfaction of that's the kind of guy Ronnie is. But he's a lot of fun, and Ronnie will be joining us hopefully the next show. He was a little under the weather today, so you and I have it for today.
Well, we're going to continue this theme, this idea, concept of just talking about whatever. And I think I've been thinking about it. And one thing that crossed my mind, and you mentioned something about it a few weeks ago, about comments that sometimes we make without thinking to somebody. Like one time I had the music teacher where I taught. I was the art teacher. So the music teacher started gaining a little weight, and she had a little poochy stomach. And so without even thinking, I said, "Oh, when are you due?" And she looked at me and says, "I ain't having no baby." So I had to kind of quick think, but that's the subject of our talk today. These quite often rude or inappropriate, misdirected comments that we make, not thinking, really thinking it through.
Well, that was you stole my thunder. That was the one I was thinking of too. I've done that probably more than once.
That's a very common one to do.
Yeah. When's the baby due? Or
Oh,
have you named it yet? What are you talking about?
Well, I suppose there are many things that we could, in the interaction of other people, in our day-to-day goings and comings, and that we have the opportunity to talk with them, and sometimes we make mistakes like that. What's some other thing that you've done?
Well, I guess we should have rehearsed because I had a whole string of them when we talked about this, but we didn't rehearse it. Can you think of any more? We wanted to make a whole 30-minute program out of this, and here we were stumped after one thing.
No, I'm not stumped. I've got my bullet points here.
Oh, you got.
But I wanted to give you the opportunity to talk about something since this was your idea.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll probably think of something once you get started. So.
Why do we do that? Why do we sometimes inadvertently make rude and inappropriate comments to other people?
Well, I think that we just are trying to be thoughtful or let people know that we For example, the baby thing. If a woman's pregnant, she kind of, I think, probably wants people to know. That's what she's thinking about all the time. And so if a woman has a child with them, for example, and you say, "Oh, what a lovely child," "Oh, what a cute little fellow. What grade is he in?" "Oh, he's in the 3rd grade." They want to talk about the child, right?
Yeah.
And so people want to talk about those things, and we think that it's a good topic of conversation. People like to talk about their house. They like to talk about their children and their grandchildren, all that kind of stuff. So I think that we think that we're getting off on a good foot, but it can be very tricky. Especially if she's just fat and not pregnant.
well, that's apparently that's a common one, but there's also I've come across people who they have very nice looking coiffed hair. A man, he's got nicely combed hair, and I'll mention his hair, or I'll think maybe I'm not saying anything, but I'm thinking, that he's wearing a wig. And instead of saying something, I just kind of don't make a comment. And then I find out later that that's his real hair, But I didn't follow through and make the comment, but I thought about it. I thought about saying, is that a wig you're wearing? Or something like that. But little things like that. Sometimes it's not as direct as that. It's,
Now, I see that a lot, especially with men. Now women know about hair. From early on, women dye their hair, they change their hair color, they go to the beauty parlor. Men don't do that much with their hair. They just generally get old, their hair gets gray and, and unmanageable and so forth. But every now and then you see a guy that's like our age, he's like 80, and his hair is jet black.
Yeah.
And you can be pretty sure he's dyeing his hair. But they continue to lie about it. I have old friends that I take the liberty of saying, "How long have you been dyeing your hair, Jim? I know you're dyeing your hair." No, I'm not. I have a friend named Bobby Amerson. Bobby's an Amerson. Amersons have dark black hair. They all have that black hair. And Bobby's a year older than I am. And I'm still
got the dark black hair.
He's still got the dark black hair, and he has a beard, and it's also jet black. The guy looks like Al Pacino, does Al dye his hair? I'm pretty sure he does. But anyway, I kid Bobby every time I see him. I say, "Bobby, I know you got to be dyeing your hair." And he says, No, I never have. And I have a tendency to believe him because I never see any roots. People that dye their hair,
you usually will detect it.
It's very hard. You got to stay right on top of it or you'll see those white roots. And I never seen it with my buddy Bobby, but I don't know when it's. I guess it depends on how well you know somebody. Now my old buddy Van Johnson, I kid Van all the time about his hair because his hair, his brother Jerry. Those Johnsons, we've known them since we were boys.
I graduated with Jerry.
And we joke around with them a lot. Jerry came up to me one day at a funeral, and Van was standing over there, and he said, "Now, Lloyd, we grew up together. You remember when we was little boys, didn't Van used to have blonde hair?" I said, Jerry, he did. Van definitely had blonde hair when we were boys. He said, "Have you ever seen anybody have blonde hair and their hair turned out to be jet black when they was got old? Have you ever seen that before?" and then Jerry went into telling. He said, "I want to tell you." He said, "The other day I went over to Van's house, and he wasn't in the front, and I walked around to the back." And when I walked around there, Van was around there. He had one of them old black pots, like the women used to wash clothes in with a stick. Mm. And he had his head down in that pot. And Van heard me when I walked up, and he jerked his head up out of that pot real quick. And that old black stuff was just running all down his face, where he was dyeing his hair in that pot. And Van said, "Jerry, you lied?"
Yeah, that sounds like one of Jerry's lies.
Yeah, it was. I'm sure that was a lie. I'm sure if man was dyeing his hair, he wouldn't do it in an old black pot, But there's some people that you have feel at liberty to kind of pick at them.
Yeah.
But sometimes, they're lying, but they don't want to. I mean, they'll get mad with you if you catch them at a lie.
Well, I've had people.
If you say anything about it.
I was married to. I'm on my second Filipino wife now. I was married to one Filipina, and the lady I'm married to now is also Filipina, and they naturally look younger anyway. Those Filipinas, their skin tone and all, they look younger to us. And so my first wife, Juvie, was 20 years younger than me, and she was mistaken for my daughter a couple of times, and people would ask me, said,
that's another one when you get through it.
Yeah, and they wouldn't say much. They were just it was kind of an awkward situation, like the dentist. We'd go to the dentist or something, and the girl cleaning says, well, your daughter's going to come in here next. I said, no, she's my wife. So that's a common mistake too, especially if one of you is looks older than the other one, or is older.
Well, I did that exact same thing. My employer, when I lived in Colorado, owned a manufacturing company, and I was friendly with him. I knew the boss pretty well, but not intimately. We weren't like pals or anything. I wasn't at liberty to say things like that. But he used to buy Denver Bronco ball game tickets for the company, and every month, I mean, if you did something good, if you were the employee of the week or something, he'd give you a ticket, right?
Yeah.
And so anyway, I earned a ticket to one of the ball games, and his name was Carl. Carl was there, and with his sister. And I noticed they kind of looked alike, so I recognized, I said, well, I know they're related, but I thought she was his mother. And I asked her, was she Carl's mother? And she said, no, I'm his sister. And so, especially with the boss, that was kind of putting my foot in my mouth.
Yeah, you insulted her.
Pretty bad.
Yeah.
I'll tell you another one that happened some years ago. My former mother-in-law, she had six children, and then she had, later in life, she was up in her 40s and she had another child.
Oh, much younger than the other.
A little accident there, And so when her baby was a baby, she already had daughters-in-laws and daughters with children. And so they used to have up here in town, they'd have a special deal for mothers and babies. For the pictures.
Yeah.
You get a free picture. And so here she's in line with her little baby with her daughters-in-law. They said, well, let's go by and get the babies to get their picture. And the lady didn't want to take her picture. She said, this is not for grandmothers. This is only for mothers. and she was known to be a nice lady, but she had a little fierce temper sometimes. She'd knock you out. She said, I'll have you know I am not the grandmother.
Yeah.
I am the mother.
Yeah. Well, that was insulting to the mother. A legitimate mistake, though, I guess, if a person is in that position, controlling who gets the pictures or who, whatever.
Well, I guess what would be the appropriate thing to do in somewhere like that? Probably just go ahead and take the picture rather than take a chance. But I guess the lady, it didn't occur to her that she wasn't the grandmother.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just obvious to her it was the grandmother.
Yeah,
but it wasn't.
She just assumed. When you know what assume is.
It makes an ass of me.
Out of you and me.
Out of you and me.
Yeah.
Well, that happens, and it usually happens before we think.
Well, what's a way that we could prevent that from happening?
Probably by thinking.
Thinking.
Thinking. It's like my grandson just got his driver's license, and I just got through just yesterday giving him a lecture. Remember, think.
Yeah.
Think until you build your automatic memory system, your muscle memory. Don't be afraid to take time to think.
Well, especially if you're about to say something. Think before speaking.
Think before speaking. Yeah. Well, what's that? Engage your brain before your butthole speaks, or something.
Yeah, I've heard that in several different varieties.
Or some form of that.
Well, I think that's the biggest thing. You just have to, if you encounter somebody and you have a question in your mind, you just have to kind of think about it a little bit before you comment. Some people don't think; they just comment. Some people don't have much of a filter. They just comment on what they think. It just comes out.
What about going too far with a conversation? Sometimes you can be having maybe it's a controversial conversation to start with.
Yeah.
And you feel comfortable in the conversation, pressing, because you know this person, but then you go too far.
What do you mean?
Maybe you go. Maybe you think you're okay going this far with this person, but they take umbrage, or suddenly they take offense at it. That you didn't think they would. I mean, you didn't think they would. It's not that you didn't think about it. You did think about it, but you thought with this person you could go too far. You thought with this person you could go there.
Yeah.
Religion, for example, is one thing.
Yeah.
People try to be. We try to be broad-minded about our religion.
But you can get offended pretty fast with religion and politics.
Oh, yeah, real fast.
You can be in connection with somebody talking, like you said, having usually a very common controversial topics and all that, but when it comes to religion or politics, you can tick somebody off very quickly. Under normal circumstances, they could joke with you all day long about stuff.
Yeah.
But those two topics are very easy to finish.
Well, that's what they always say: religion and politics, and family. You got to be careful talking about somebody's family. Even though you may have a son or a nephew who's a ne'er-do-well, he's in and out of jail, and but he's still baby. To you, he's always baby. You have a soft spot, even though he's an idiot. You just don't want me calling him an idiot, right? So how's that old idiot son of yours doing?
Well, my daughter Wendy, she has her little girls have always been real small, very very tiny, because their dad was a small guy. His family all small people.
Uh-huh.
But those little girls, they were unusually small. Growth hormone delay, But they've been. She has been kind of halfway scolded for not putting the little one, Audrey, who was the tiniest. They say you have to have a child that's under a certain age, under 6 or whatever. You have to have a child under 6 in a car seat, with a thing on it. And Wendy says, she's 10 years old. She don't need. So, people assume by looking outward appearances, and they make a comment like that. And you don't know. So it's just usually better to stay silent. But if you're going to make a comment, you got to make sure. You got to know for sure,
Well, there's a situation in my family. I have an autistic grandson, and my daughter who has dealt with this. He's like over 20 now.
Yeah.
And he's a big boy, probably 300 pounds. But from the time he was little, autistic children sometimes are difficult to control. If you go to a restaurant, you had to really watch him. He might walk over and start eating your French fries or something.
Oh yeah.
And people are quick. People don't understand autism. They don't know much about it. They think the child is just spoiled.
Yeah.
They'll say something. You ought to try to control that child. That child just needs a spanking or something. And that can really offend people when you say something but you don't know what you're talking about.
It just occurred to me an instance of and I've even done this before. Someone, you know this person's blind. You know they're blind. You meet them at church or somewhere, and then you're talking to them, and you're shaking their hand, and you know they're blind, and you say, well, "Okay, I'll see you later." Boom. You know, you've spoken.
You think that's an offensive? I mean, that's sort of more of a figure of speech.
Well, it could be, but they could take it very seriously because they're tuned into not being able to see, and then when you say "I'll see you later," that's kind of like an insensitive.
Would you say "I'll hear you later"?
No, but
what else would you say?
I don't know.
I mean, the word "see" is just a figure of speech.
Well, you'd think so. You would think.
Well, I guess, yeah. Well, are people too sensitive today about everything?
Maybe they are, yeah. But I would have to. I mean, now that I know about it, if I'm aware of the sensitivity and I'm aware that this person is blind, I think I would find some other way to say, okay, next week, we'll talk to you next week or something like that, instead of saying I'll see you later. If you're pretty, but if you're just in the activity of saying goodbye to people, whatever, it's very common to say, okay, I'll see you later. You're right. That's that's acceptable, but it could be offensive to that person who is blind,
But can people be faulted, or should people who have the problem, the blind person, for example, is a blind person being unreasonable who would take offense? If they would take offense at somebody saying that, wouldn't it be reasonable that you could say, well, you shouldn't be so sensitive? I mean, you are blind. I mean, this is a common everyday expression, so you really need to learn to not be so sensitive.
Well, that brings up my next question. Is there something, should we apologize, or should we comment on the person's inability to accept a comment, or be insulted by a comment?
No, I don't think we should say it.
Or should we just let it slide?
No, we should let it slide, yeah, for definite. No, I don't think we should lecture anybody, but I'm just talking about between us girls here now.
Yeah.
Just you and me and the lamppost. Nobody else is listening, probably.
Yeah.
But just between us girls, should people try not to be so sensitive? I mean, we're coming through right now. Again, here we go with politics. The age of wokeism. Everybody is woke. Everybody's offended by race, for example.
Well, yeah, it's gone too far.
It's the big one.
Yeah.
There's a general consensus that we've gone too far.
Yeah, but
about people being offended by every little thing.
I know, but I don't know. That's a touchy area. A person's handicap, or
well, handicaps I think are off the table. Yeah, I mean, we shouldn't
joke around about
a person's handicap.
Uh-huh. Well, have you ever been caught doing something like that and chastised? Have you ever been scolded for doing that?
I can't remember an instance, a specific instance, but I'm sure I have. When I was growing up, as a young man, I wasn't very sensitive. We used to make fun of handicapped people.
Oh yeah, that was not.
Kids that we went to school with.
Yeah.
We made fun of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why we did that. We just thought it was funny, I guess.
Well, that's kids being kids, and the kids are insensitive to begin with. They don't.
Yeah. We had a guy. There was a guy in our class. I remember this. I was in high school. I should have known better. That was a little slow. More than a little slow. And I remember picking on him, and we told him that this real pretty girl in the class liked him. And he started following her around. He's practically stalking her all day long because he thought she liked him. And we kept urging him, go up close to her. She really likes you. She told me she likes you. And we were back standing in the shadows laughing at him. What a cruel thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that reminds me of a.
But we did that, and probably many other things as well.
That reminds me of a joke on this theme. This guy had a fake eye. He had lost his eye, so he had a wooden replica of an eye in the socket, and it was fairly obvious to people if you look real close that it was not a real eye. And he was a teenager guy, and he was always very self-conscious about it. And his mother and his father, they talked him into going to the prom. Says, don't worry, you got to go experience the prom. You got to go, and just don't worry about it. Anybody says anything. So he goes to the prom, and there's a girl sitting across the room that he's looking at. He likes to look at this girl from a distance, and she has a cleft palate, you know. And so he goes over, gets up enough courage to go over and ask her to dance. He walks over there and he says, would you like to dance? And she looks up, excited. She says, would I? He says, hair lip, hair lip. He got offended because she said, would I? Would I? So then he turned around and said, hair lip, hair lip.
Did that really happen? Or is
no, that's a joke.
That's just a joke.
But it just illustrates what could transpire if you mistakenly say a word that's offensive to somebody who, you know.
Well, you know, back when in Daddy's, our father's generation, the people, I remember people like there was a guy named Humpy.
Yeah.
Humpy was real humpbacked, and people called him Humpy. That was his name. I never knew his real name. Everybody called him Humpy. And if a guy had a club foot or a crippled leg, they called him Gimpy.
Yeah.
You know? Or if he had a deformed hand, you know, they would call you maybe Nubbin or Gimpy or something. You know, they would actually nickname them that.
Based on their...
And a lot of those people went through their whole lives. And if you asked him what his name was, he said, my name's Nubbin.
Or Humpy.
Or Humpy. My name's Humpy. You know? Yeah. And they just accepted it, and they weren't sensitive about it.
It's the same for somebody who goes through life that he's got the nickname of Shorty.
Yeah,
you know?
Shorty.
Or String Bean.
Exactly. I mean, you know, they just, maybe they were sensitive about it. They just learned to suck it up and deal with it. But surely they were just as sensitive about it as anybody today.
Well, I know I would harbor a long-term resentment if people had. I was always. That's telling us we're out of time.
Oh yeah, I see that over here. Yeah, we're at 28 minutes.
Yeah. Well, my whole life I've been chubby, even as a kid. Since about 4th grade, I've put on weight and I've always been chubby. Now, if I had gotten nicknamed Chubby or Fatso or something like that, I might have gone along with it just to be agreeable. But I would have hated that my whole life. If still in my old age, my cousins or whatever come on, oh, here's Fatso, hey Chubby,
yeah,
you know,
well,
like look, Travis was Buckshot, you know.
Yeah. Well, you never know. Now, when I was a boy, I was flat-footed. And I remember my father telling me one time, looked at my feet and he said, whoa, boy, you'll never get in the Army with those feet. And I was so self-conscious that I used to roll up pieces of cloth and put under the middle part of my feet and walk around all day, and my shoes would get a little bump on the bottom of them where I would have that piece of cloth rolled up under them, and it would hurt. Yeah. My feet, I would come home, my feet hurting because I thought I could bend my foot.
Yeah.
You know, sort of like an instep, and I didn't know anything about insteps. Orthopedic stuff. But I was extremely embarrassed by that. And if I was in the shower or playing down at the creek and somebody would say, oh, somebody around here is flat-footed, I mean, I would just run and hide my feet. I was so... nobody knew that.
Well, I think we can safely summarize this discussion here with...
be careful.
Be careful what you say and think before you speak. But
that probably sums it up pretty well.
But if you think of anything else, we'll do another. We'll record again and add different things next time.
Or look, we can always throw bits and pieces into another. It doesn't have to be
right.
We don't have to adhere strictly to the agenda.
But that's the end of our time today.
Okay. With this one has been about saying embarrassing things, and hopefully y'all get the idea, and we can have a little fun with this conversation, or maybe you can go out and have your own conversation.
All right.
It's been fun.
See you later.